this week, right? So where was I, right? Like Waldo, I was in the streets. I was in the streets this week, and I attended a live event on Wednesday right here in Metro Atlanta, and it was called Congress, Cognac, and Cigars. And I was like, whoever came up with that name is fine by me. Not that I like cognac, because I've never actually tasted cognac, and in fact, I really don't like the smell of cigars. However, I knew where there was going to be cognac and cigars, there were going to be some people that looked like me that might be interested in having courageous conversations surrounding politics. And so I thought it was a very creative way to brand and market the event without, feeling ratchet, right? Like, it wasn't like twerking, Tito's and something else. It was, a little bit more classy, cognac and cigars. And this event was hosted by Congressman Wesley from Texas, and he had a special guest with him. He had Congressman Byron Donalds, and then you guys, we had the pleasure of hosting the lovely, and she is a tall drink of water, let me tell you, Sage Steele, formerly of ESPN. She was the moderator of the event. And so the purpose of this event, from my understanding, was to get a feel for the pulse of what are Black men thinking, right? As it relates to this upcoming election, the Republican Party was making a concerted effort to say, we want to hear from Black men. We want to get them in a room together, right, around some cognac and some cigars, and see what they are thinking about the issues. What are the issues of the day that are important to them, and how are they feeling? And it was really a form, if I'm not mistaken, of outreach and engagement, right? The invitation was extended across partisan lines. I found out about it from fellow conservatives, but I later found out that this invitation was extended to everybody, meaning conservatives, independents, liberals, Democrats, Republicans, like whatever you identify as, this event was for you. And so it was super crowded, and y'all know I'm old. And so like all that heat, all that heat with all those people, and it was hot, but it was crowded, and that was a good sign. But overall, the vibe, the fact that it was well attended, I wished the venue would have been larger. However, there's no way to know exactly how to plan for events like this, because it is not often that the Republican Party, the GOP, is hosting events specifically with the intent of trying to reach those who hate their guts. Okay, let's just be honest. And I mean, look, I'm inclined to understand. Okay, I'm inclined to understand. However, they get an A for effort for wanting to do something nice like that, and I just thought it was cool. I go to conservative events all the time. And things don't get out of control like that. Like, people, even within conservative circles, when we disagree fundamentally with each other, it's just normal, okay? And so you kind of know where I'm going with this. This situation was different, okay? Things got a little bit out of control and out of hand, and I'm here to talk all about it, okay? Y'all know how I am. I'm going to be transparent and open, and I'm going to keep it 100, and I'm not going to hold my tongue, right? Because I'm grown. Like, after 40, you know how it is. Anyway, the flow of questions, in my opinion, should have been controlled. So this was set up like a panel. Sage was moderating. Byron Donalds, just gangster with it. Love Byron Donalds. He's sitting in the middle. Wesley Hunt is sitting next to him. And then all of us are kind of just out in the out. I can't really describe it. It's like a bar, and then they have like an upstairs area. So that's just how the setup was. But I believe the flow of the questions should have been more controlled, and here's why. A situation broke out where I have reason to believe that there were some paid agitators in the room. Okay. Mind you, I said I go to conservative events all the time. We disagree. Yes, people on the same side disagree. And I've never been in a situation where I was like, you need to go handle this because them over there, they either need to calm themselves down or they need to go. So that's why I am saying I think that there were some paid agitators in the room. Either these individuals were paid agitators sent to purposely be disruptive and act a fool, or the Democrat Party has thoroughly succeeded in brainwashing and creating individuals who just lack civility everywhere they go. I'm not sure which one it is. Probably a little bit of both, and I don't know, but let me kind of explain why. So, both Congressman Hunt and Congressman Byron Donalds, these gentlemen spent a great deal of time talking about policy issues, right? I mean, I'm talking about the issues that are on everyone's mind that are the most important this election cycle, right? So immigration was huge. They talked about the negative effects of, having an open border and how it impacts Americans. And what people don't understand is that to be conservative means that you have to have an American first agenda. It kind of just comes with the territory. Now, notice how I didn't say an America only agenda, right? That's not what I said. I said an America first agenda. I hope that doesn't trigger you. It shouldn't. It's just words, and we're going to talk about words and how they trigger people. But America first, like, it means that you don't get to plan on and attempt to save others, right, before you are taking care of home first. Like when you go on a plane, right, they always tell you with the air mask, put your air mask on first, secure yours, and then you can go and rescue whoever else you want. Whether it's your child or another image bearer of God, but you make sure your mask is on first, right? When you're safe and secure, then you're able to go and help others. I like that analogy because that's how I look at what it means to have an America first agenda. So if you live in this country and you're concerned about our flourishing and our prosperity and all of the things that make this country a great place to live, you should be America first. So illegal immigration, they also talked about how it just drives wages down, right? Meaning people are out here crying about not being able to earn a livable wage, yet when the border is open, you really are not going to see a livable wage. In fact, first of all, what the heck is a livable wage? I don't like the terminology and I understand why they use it, but the idea that everyone is supposed to earn a certain amount makes absolutely no sense to me. Because all jobs are not created equal. And so therefore, there are some jobs that demand more skills and more education than other jobs. So you don't get to flip burgers and then demand to be paid like an anesthesiologist. No shade to people who flip burgers. All of us started somewhere. My first job was at at Hallmark. I wasn't really selling the greeting cards. I was at the candy counter and I was just dispensing candy, right? And I was making like $6.50 an hour. And I did that job well I wasn't a believer. So I put my best foot forward, right? Dispensing and eating the candy. But that job wasn't worth for me to get paid $15 an hour. I got paid $6.50 an hour in 1995 because that's what it was worth, okay? So legal immigration, other issues with it, we talked about how it impacts our revenue base, right? So if you're not here legally, you don't pay taxes. But these illegals are using our resources, and they're using resources that the rest of us are paying for, right? Like we have to house and educate and feed a bunch of people who did not contribute to the tax base, and that is a problem. Illegal immigration also, we discussed how it places an undue burden on social services, particularly the impact of Social Security. It was Wesley Hunt who was really driving this point home, and he passionately talked about how at the rate this country is going, we can't afford to do a lot of the things we're doing, and Social Security will be insolvent for both him and Byron, which means that's me too, because we're all around the same age. And so that is something we need to think about. But not only that, our schools cannot handle the burden of educating additional children who not only do they not speak the language, but they are already academically behind from their country of origin most times. And when you think about it, our own children are academically behind, especially in this post-COVID world. And truth be told, a huge proportion of our own children who are American born, they were born here and yet they can't really speak the language. Like, have y'all listened to Lil Woody from the Young Thug trial? If you listen to him speak, I promise you, I was like, what country is he from? Because I can't understand nothing that Negro was saying half the time. It literally sounds like another language, and I'm not even trying to be funny. But the overall idea is that American children are being pushed aside in favor of rolling out the red carpet for other people's children. And if anybody should understand that, it should be Black folks. I'm not done. We also talked about crime, right? And we talked about crime in the context of the illegal immigration crisis. We talked about how when illegals are allowed to come in without distinction, without being vetted, criminals are more apt to come over. Like, if the word gets out, you can kind of just come into the United States, and they not really checking for who you are, what you do, and why you're coming. The criminals are like, oh, well, that's where I need to go. All you have to do, look at New York City, look at Oakland, look at Chicago. In New York City, these illegals are, and yes, I'm calling them illegals, okay? So don't come for me saying listen, this is a Standard Truth podcast. We use words that actually have real meaning, and we speak truth, okay? I'm not into sanitizing my language for, the weak at heart. I'm not doing it. But yes, the illegals, they're robbing people every day. And this is not fear mongering. These are things that are actually happening. The mayor of New York is telling you, in all his liberal retardation, that it is unsustainable. New York City, NYPD are struggling to keep up and keep Americans safe because they're trying to keep their eyes on all of these illegal aliens who are literally using city property, public transportational mechanisms such as those little scooters, right, to assault and rob people every single day. Like, they're robbing people every single day, snatching phones, snatching purses. It don't matter, right? They're assaulting young women and young girls. And yet, I find it interesting that people actually get upset when I articulate what's really happening, and they don't understand why I don't want to support illegal immigration, right? We have to keep in mind fentanyl, the sex trafficking, the gang activity. There are all sorts of different types of crime that are allowed to flourish, which places a burden on local police who are already not respected. Okay. And so we have to just have the conversation. And what Byron and Wesley Hunt were trying to help us understand was that, an administration who cares about the country would never open up the floodgates and just allow any and everybody to come here unless he was purposely trying to destroy the nation from the inside out, or thinking that this would be a viable plan to replace a voting bloc, right? So they already had Black folks as their electoral serf since the civil rights operations of the 1960s. And now they figure, well, we'll just let these illegals in and we will, give them Biden-Harris t-shirts to wear and the sport. Because yes, some of them were wearing those. And then we will just have a loyal voter base to keep us in power in perpetuity. Okay, that's how it's working right now. What else did we talk about? The economy. The economy was also top of the list, right? There were some really hard truths discussed, such as our national debt. I know we don't like talking about it, but y'all, this country's in trouble. Like, we are in so much debt. We're in debt to our eyeballs. We are broke. We ain't got it. Okay, we ain't got it, and we don't know where it's getting from. They just print the money. You know, a lot of our money is being used in foreign affairs. And let the truth be told, with the uniparty, that is those fake Republicans, right? And the treasonous Democrats, so many of them are funneling money through this war complex, this war industrial complex. And they're leaving office like super paid. Okay, so we could have a conversation. That didn't come up at the Cognac and Cigar Event. That's just emphasis mine. But another topic that was brought up, which was very, very enlightening, that needed to be discussed, was transportation and deregulation. That was also discussed. And that particular component was super important to me because of the industry that I'm in. I'm in the home furnishing industry. And during the pandemic, I mean, it was a busy time, but it was a bustling, profitable time for my industry as well as for the transportation industry. But the problem now is that I have friends who were owner operators, right, who own their own trucks, who had to downsize and sell all of their fleet because of the regulatory problems that are being placed, or the regulatory issues that are being placed on this industry, such as demanding that these big old tractor trailers be electric vehicle compliant or some foolishness like that, or just the environmental regulations, or just how a lot of these companies, particularly the larger ones that have a huge fleet, they drive the price of freight costs and mileage down so that the small guy, he's like, listen, it doesn't make sense for me to run from Florida to New York, because based on these rates that y'all are trying to pay me, I'm losing money, you know? And so that was important to me. And just regulation and deregulation in general, and having good trade deals. Like, these are things that you guys do not understand. These policies impact you because transportation is how goods are transported through this country. Plain and simple. Without our truckers, we don't have stability. And if the truckers are out of business and are unable to work and move product at a decent price, then that means all that stuff that you be wanting to order from Amazon. I know y'all think this big like warehouse in the sky and they just pull it off the shelf and you click a button and it shows up. But those products have to be transported somewhere all the time. Commerce is happening all around us. And so prices end up going up for the consumer, because if our fuel costs are high and the freight costs are high, who do you think they're going to transfer those costs to you? Who they're gonna transfer those costs to? They're gonna transfer those costs to you. That's what I was trying to say. So anyway, so you would think, you guys, that after all of the issues that I just brought up, and that was just a small fragment of the issues that were discussed. After all of that was discussed, you would think that if someone had an issue with these topics, right, that they would present their disagreements or, you know, push back in a clear and logical fashion. You would think that that's kind of like how it would work, well, at least me. Maybe I'm naive. Well, that did not happen. That did not happen. That is not what happened at all. So now we got to talk about the ugly. Okay, after all of those things that were discussed, the ugly aspect of this event is, matter of fact, I can show you better than I can tell you. But I'm going to share you guys some footage. And it's a clip of a gentleman who claimed that his parents were immigrants from from Jamaica. And I'm not saying I don't believe him. I don't know this dude. Fine, like whatever. But for me, the reason why I don't believe that, and it could be true, but I'm just telling you why it wasn't convincing for me, Because you guys, my people are from the Caribbean, right? Like, so between the Dominican Republic, St. Croix, St. Thomas, you know, if you're from Jamaica, Trinidad, Antigua, like, we are a hardworking people, right? Like, we all like whining and begging. Like, that's foreign to me. Like, Caribbean people will work 4 and 5 jobs if we have to, because ain't nobody trying to go back to their country of origin, right? Or to stay permanent. Like, they go to visit, right? But they're not like, you know, I just want to go back. No, if you're going back, it's because you got deported. Okay, like INS came to get you. They came knocking at the door and they like, it's time for you to dip. That's how that typically works. If you've come here from one of those countries, you are grateful to be here and you are killing the game because you understand that America is as good as it gets. Okay, but like I was saying, he claimed that his parents were from Jamaica. And typically Jamaican parents, they raise people a certain way. So I'm giving you some context. But after everything that I just recapped in terms of what was discussed, and I didn't even talk about the solutions that both congressmen presented, I want you guys to take a listen to what this particular individual's chief concern and complaint was. Take a listen to this.
There was a vote about the representative, a local representative, had brought up an amendment to the defense bill to reinstate a Confederate monument that has a depiction of a mammy receiving a white baby from a Confederate soldier. Of the 4 people that voted to have that reinstalled, 3 of them, 2 of them on the stage, 3 of them are black Republicans, right? Of the 4 black Republicans, 3 of them voted to yay on that. That vote almost passed. Something like 206 to 192. I don't understand, from descendants of black slaves, why you think that isn't a principled position. So I think when we talk about to black men, it seems deceptive to come in here and talk about issues and then vote what seemingly isn't based on principle.
Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general that fought against the rights of people that looked like me. Wesley Hunt, for a year, spent a year living in Robert E. Lee barracks. Every single day that I walked beneath that threshold, I looked up and saw that name and thought to myself, damn, this is a great country. Because only in America do you have 3 black children matriculate through the premier leadership institution of the entire world and graduate from there and live in a barracks named after a Confederate general. Only in America. And if it were named anything differently, I wouldn't have that perspective. Do you think I support the Confederacy? Don't kid yourself. Of course I don't. Excuse me?
Wow.
Of course I don't. See, this is what happened to you last time. I'm trying to have a nuanced conversation.
You don't forget about where you're from. Don't paint us a picture. Don't tell us that we can't educate our kids on the opportunity. We're talking about vouchers. You're talking about things that's still going to cost them more money.
The point I'm making is that I actually do understand.
You don't
I
understand.
totally recognize
Obvious.
the value
It's
of that.
obvious.
And what I want to say is, at no point in time will I ever be a victim. That's why
Everybody
I'm sitting
has a
here right
story, is my
now.
point.
And I don't care what the name of
What
the
are you
statue
going to
was.
do?
And I don't care what the name of the building is.
What are you going to do?
I don't care what the name of the building is because
I'm a black dad. This is a
am
conversation
not.
for black men. And all I hear is people that are non-black trying to hush me. I came here from my family.
I think we
I came here
had
from
we had security.
But I'm getting all the stories.
I need you to talk with respect. My goodness, this is not kindergarten.
So you guys saw and heard that. And let me just essentially recap. So that before I played that, didn't I explain like all of the policies and the issues that were discussed? We talked about some of them. You guys, literally after all of that, I mean, we talked about school choice, immigration, the economy, energy. We talked about taxes, small business, like we talked about things of so much substance. And after that conversation, when they finally opened up the mic, I just, this was the chief concern and complaint. So I want to, for a moment, I don't know. I kind of just want to talk about this Confederate monument for a moment. I want to talk about the Confederate monuments. Y'all know words don't scare me. They don't hurt me. They don't bother me at all. So I want to talk about this Confederate monument. And you guys, I have so many questions. Okay. I have so many questions. In fact, I actually asked this gentleman, and then there was another one before him who started crying about this monument before him. Like, he was way more off into it than this guy was. And I actually asked him the same question. That was part of how I got in trouble and why I'm on punishment. But before this guy, there was this other pavement ape. And yes, I'm calling him a pavement ape. And just let me explain what a pavement ape is. A pavement ape is a moronic male who cannot function in freedom. It has nothing to do with what you look like. It has nothing to do with your external or your dermis. Nothing like that. This is a behavioral characteristic. This is the male counterpart to the orangutan. It's the pavement ape, right? This pavement ape starts yelling and being real aggressive over this Confederate monument. Y'all, like, he was angry, and he was angry because of how Wesley Hunt, Byron Donalds, and Burgess Owens voted concerning whether or not the monument should be reinstated. Now, the monument's been down since December, and then there was a vote to reinstate the monument. So before we talk about that, I just want to give my opinion on monuments. I take grave issue with the fact that this country has a very checkered and painful past. It's not all glamorous. It's not all beautiful. It's not all pretty. It's none of that. It's some aspects of it that's gritty. There are some aspects of it that is really, really grimy. But you don't, when people start coming along wanting to tear down monuments, wanting to rip names off of streets and stuff like that, that tells you there's something going on from an emotional maturity and emotional stability standpoint, that these inanimate objects that represent times and periods in history that we should not forget. Like, you need to remember, you should know who Robert E. Lee is. You should know who Stonewall Jackson is. Like, you should know the names of all of these people and who they were, what they represented, what they stood for. Like, we need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. Nothing wrong with that. But I have never approached or seen a monument of any kind that triggered me to where I just couldn't function in life. So this whole grown man who, one, did not wait his turn, he didn't wait to be acknowledged. He just started yelling and getting all aggressive, and he wanted to know, why did Byron Donalds and Wesley Hunt vote against the reinstatement of this monument? So before I give this whole situation the business, because I'm about to give it the business, let me read to you guys. There's this article that was published on the 14th from, I want to say it is the Washington Post. Yes. June 14th, Washington Post. I want to read this article to give you guys the proper context. So here it goes. Almost 200 House Republicans voted Thursday to reinstall a Confederate memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. All of the House GOP leadership, including House Speaker Mike Johnson and Rep. Elise Stefanik, voted for the measure. Representative Byron Donalds of Florida, a Black conservative, notice how, let me just stop right there. I think it is so interesting that they don't describe Speaker Mike Johnson as a white Republican or Representative Elise Stefanik. I don't even know what her ethnicity is. I guess, is she white or is like some kind of Hispanic hybrid? I don't know. I've seen her before, but I don't know what she is. But they don't say, a white Republican from New York. But when it gets down to Byron Donalds, the Republican from Florida, he's a Black conservative and Donald Trump's surrogate, who took heat this month for seeming to praise aspects of the Jim Crow era. We're going to talk about that as well. Voted for it as well. I just thought it was interesting that everybody else just gets to identify with the policies and values that are important to them, but he has to be described by his ethnicity, which gives you no indication to what is valuable to him or what his essence or worth is. So it's almost like, and I'm not saying we need to act like he's not Black. Here's what I am saying. They purposely colorize you because what they want to remind you is, Negro, you are Black, and therefore you think how we tell you to think. You're not allowed to have an independent thought and think how you want to think, right? With values that align with who you are and how you were raised. No. What is it like Tiffany Henry said? You Black, and you Black. You should be shaming yourself because you Black. That Blackness, they're not talking about his color. They are referring to the mentality that comes along with that culture of Blackness that they want him to be, but that he refuses to accept. That's why they describe it that way. But let me finish. Stefanik and Donald have been mentioned as possible vice presidential picks for Trump. The amendment, which was part of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2024, failed at a vote of 230 to 192 after 24 Republicans sided with Democrats in voting against it. Most Republicans, Reps. Wesley Hunt of Texas and Burgess Owens of Utah, wait for it, who are Black, supported the amendment proposed by Representative Andrew Clyde, Republican from Georgia. No Democrats did. Once again, nobody else's ethnicity gets highlighted. But they wanted to make sure to remind you that Wesley Hunt and Burgess Owens are Black. So when they do that, remember, they're trying to remind you, oh, you Black. So you ideologically, something's wrong with you because you got this R behind your name and you're Black. We need the world to know what they do. They do it because they think there's some element of shame that is supposed to come along with it. Like when you point out that we're Black and conservative, like that's supposed to make us feel some sort of kind of way. It is a form of subjugation. It is a form of how they want to remind you that you ran off the plantation. You one that got away. And so we got to remind you that you ain't thinking like you're supposed to. We want people to know you're Black. How dare you vote this way? Let me continue. The memorial was removed in December after a years-long congressional effort to remove Confederate names and statues from military installations across the country. The amendment would have returned the memorial, which is in storage in a Defense Department facility in Virginia, to its original spot in the cemetery. The 32-foot bronze statue depicted, among other images, an enslaved Black woman, described on the cemetery website as a mammy figure, holding the white child of a Confederate officer and an enslaved black man following his Confederate enslaver into battle, according to the cemetery. So let's go ahead and take a look. Y'all want to see it? Y'all want to see what got this man in his emotional feels that caused him to be so visibly upset that he was darn near into tears? Do y'all want to see it? Okay, I'm going to show it to you. This is the monument. Let's take a look at it. As you can see here, there's a white Confederate soldier. He's got a sword on his side, and he's embracing and holding a baby. And then there's the black woman, I guess described as the mammy figure, as they call it, who is also holding the baby. And notice that the white soldier is kissing the baby. This, my friends, I want y'all to take a good look at this godforsaken monument where the white child of the Confederate officer and the enslaved black woman are all depicted here together, right? So I'm showing you this. I just read the article from the Washington Post. And this whole grown man, like he was a big burly dude too. Like the first one that was really whining about it, he was kind of on the thin side, but then the other two big burly dudes whining over this artwork while the rest of us was trying to listen to two distinguished congressmen, one who served this country, give us what they believe are the most pressing issues for this country as of late. Y'all, let's look at it one more time. This is the monument. This is the monument, right? So you see here, the Confederate soldier, right? And a black female slave. She's holding the baby. He's kissing the baby. And then you have, I'm assuming, this enslaved black man following his Confederate enslaver into battle. Now, let me give you guys some information that might be shocking to you. I know it's going to hurt a little bit, so lean in so you can just brace for the impact. I'm going to point out and remind all of you of the straight double-minded schizophrenic mindset of the liberals in the black community. We need to remind you. You guys, first, let me ask a question. Who were the Confederates, right? Like, who were they? Anybody want to type in the chat who the Confederates were? Anybody? I'll remind you. They were Democrats. They were Democrats. The Confederate states were willing to die for their right to maintain slavery. Y'all, they wanted slavery. They loved their slavery. They loved the slavery. They loved their slaves, not like in an affectionate kind of way, but it was like, no, this is our institution. This is what we do. Slavery is our economy. They loved slavery and they were willing to fight tooth and nail and die to maintain such an evil institution. So if the Confederacy were Democrats and you are loyal to the Democrats so much that you vote for them at a 95% clip to the detriment of your own interests, might I add, why are you trying to erase that part of the history that you love so much, right? Like, aren't these your people? Let's look at them again. You're a Democrat. This is your history. These are your people, right? You know, the ancestors, the ones that helped dig the ramparts for the war and hid and protected master's property out in the woods while he went fighting the war to keep you a slave. See, we don't want to talk about those black folks, right? There were black folks who fought on the Confederate side, and there were black folks who were visibly crying harder than the white wife and the children when they found out that master had died in the war. That happened. I mean, the Confederates were the Democrats. The KKK was the Democrats. The Jim Crow, those are Democrats. Help me to understand why you are mad again. I'm so confused. I'm so confused about this anger, about all this Democrat subjugation and oppression. Because here's the deal. When I look at that carving, I am going to be honest, y'all. I feel absolutely nothing. Like I feel nothing. Like I don't know what I was supposed to feel. And I'm just telling you that it gets no visceral reaction from me whatsoever. Like I'm not breaking out in hives. My underarms are not itching. I don't have PTSD over it. I mean, I'm not tweaking or anything like that. Nope. That's just the truth. Like outside of it being a nice piece of architecture, I have absolutely no emotional connection to it at all. And why is that? Why are you like, well, April, why don't you feel anything when you look at that? Well, let me ask you, why do you guys think? Why do you guys think that I'm not having any sort of emotional reaction to this piece of stone? Let's look at it again. In case for those who are just joining us, let's look at it again. Right? This is the monument that after we talked about this inflation and this horrible economy and the stagnation and growth of jobs in this country and the immigration problem and the crime problem and the educational issue, this was where the rubber met the road and was a source of contention. This was it. So the reason why, you guys, that I have no emotional reaction to that piece of stone that y'all just saw, it's because, well, for one, it's a piece of stone. Like literally, it is a piece of stone. Like it can't speak. It can't rock me to sleep at night. It doesn't put any money in my bank account. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to hate it. I really am, but I just can't seem to muster up the anger and the frustration that I guess I'm supposed to have when I look at it. Like this piece of stone didn't stop me from waking up this morning, planning out my day. It didn't prevent my husband from getting up early and going to open up our business like he does every single day. It didn't stop my children, right, from logging on to their laptops and opening up any of their books to educate themselves and to learn something new today. Like none of that happened. Like that piece of stone, it didn't prevent my stylist from meeting me at her shop at the Crack of Crack to slay my hair today. The piece of stone, like it just, I don't know. The piece of stone, it did not stop me from hopping on the YouTube, right, to expose this tomfoolery that I witnessed on Wednesday from a whole grown man. A whole grown man who looked like me. Out of all of the problems that this country is grappling with right now, this man thought it was useful and necessary to start a whole argument over a monument. A monument, a carving that has been up since only the Lord knows how long. It was amazing, right? Like I am not in support of trying to erase or rewrite history. Because if we don't deal with and grapple with history, even the parts that we don't like, we are destined to repeat it. But here's the part that was so hilarious to me. Y'all, this is Democrat history. Right? These people who I guess he hates and despises so much are Democrats. I mean, are you ashamed? I don't know. I mean, slavery was pretty shameful and you should be ashamed, but I don't think you are. I don't think you are. Like this man is mad at the wrong people. I mean, if you're going to harbor bitterness and unforgiveness in your heart about something you never experienced or personally lived, toward people who had nothing to do with the grievance that you were mad about. At least direct your anger toward the right people. Right? Like, he needs to have smoke for Democrats. Why? Because slavery was a Democrat-sponsored institution. The KKK, that was a Democrat-sponsored institution. Jim Crow was a Democrat-sponsored institution. And the mental slavery and government subjugation that you are living under right now is a Democrat-sponsored institution. So it seems to me that somebody doesn't really know who he's supposed to be mad at. Or, better yet, how about this? What in the heck are you so angry about anyway? One, you've never been a slave. No, see, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to take that back because when you whine and you cry about stuff like this, especially when you are a grown man, you very well are still a slave. You are a slave and you are shackled to bitterness, insecurity, hatred in your heart toward your fellow man, and you are filled with unforgiveness for something that you never personally lived through. Just mad for the sake of being mad. And when you're that mad, there is nothing a congressman can say to ameliorate the anger and hatred in your heart. You need the light of Christ to just shine in the recesses of your heart to reveal to you that you are no better than those evil white Democrat slave masters that you love talking about so much. You ain't no different. And in fact, you're just like them. You are just like them. And why do I say that? Because you came into that event. You came there for the sole purpose to bully, intimidate, shame, and to subjugate people who are literally there taking time out of their schedule to hip all of us to some game that actually has the ability to help you and to grow you from the scared, fake, bravado having little man to a confident, self-secured, free Black man in America. But you don't want that. When you come to an event and you show out like that, you are literally acting just like your former slave masters and the Jim Crow oppressors who used fear and intimidation and bullying to demand that others comply and do things their way. You sit here. No, you can't sit there. And we don't want you going here. You need to drink from this water fountain and you need to do this. That's who the Dixiecrats and the Democrats were, and that's who they still are today. And when these paid agitators, these melanated Marxists, these colored communists came to that event to whine and cry about a statue, they were acting just like their daddy. Just like them. Y'all, it was a shame. It was a shame to watch. And what was even worse, it was painful to listen to. Y'all, my husband had to calm me down. And see, now I'm on punishment. I'm on punishment, and I can't even go to no more political events by myself because I could not understand how in a country that has afforded, despite its past, so much opportunity for you to just figure it out and do the darn thing, that in spite of that, with all the other issues that we are dealing with, like everyday issues like gas and groceries, inflation, taxes, this was his issue. And it got me upset. And I was upset because I can't stand weak jellyback soy boys. I can't. Ain't in my opinion, ain't nothing worse than a Black man begging, whining and crying. I cannot stand it. You get zero respect from me for that. I can't empathize with you. I'm not rubbing your back. No, I can't. Because to me, victims are weak. They don't represent strength. You always talk about you a strong Black man, but then in the next breath, your whole body is engaged, upset over a piece of stone. Are you kidding me? If you're too weak to lead from a position of power and authority, fine. Step aside and make room for the ones who will, because you just loud and you weak. And just tell us that you were not built for this, and we will leave you alone. We will. Because we're not moving anything forward. If those are the men that represent the best of the community, we ain't going nowhere. We're not moving forward. Nothing is happening that's going to cause us to get to the next level. But what is my point? I was really bothered. I really do think those individuals were paid agitators, because nothing they said made a lick of sense. Nothing they said. Now, I could have been wrong. I could be wrong. They probably just some old regular lefticals. I don't know. But it was problematic for me, not on the basis of the question itself. It was how they went about doing it. They didn't wait for the opportunity for them to open up for questions. They just started hollering and being all aggressive, being racist to the few little white folk that were in the room. I'm like, this man didn't do nothing to you but exist. But you see, when you like your daddy, your Democrat ancestors, right? That's how you do. You just nothing but a big old loud bully because you weak. You don't have anything of substance to offer. So you have to bully, you have to subjugate, you have to act like that. And it just gets on my nerves. But anyway, out of all of the things that this individual was angry about, I was waiting to see when was he going to get mad, right, about something of substance, right? Like, because in my opinion, we need men in our community who can get the heck out of their emotional feelings just long enough and actually be mad about some things that really matter, right? Like, why aren't you mad about the sexualization of our children? Right? Like how there's a concerted effort to effeminize our boys and to convince them that, they might be a little girl. So we want to help them explore that possibility, right? We're going to help them explore that delusion where you want to convince them that they might be a girl. So we need books in the schools, right? That's going to affirm them instead of the truth of how God made them. Like, why aren't you mad about that? Like upset to the highest level of festivity? I never see that kind of aggression on topics like that. How about you get mad? I don't ever see them get mad that our little girls are looking up the sexy red, right? And how the Black culture that is perpetuated to them in all sorts of forms and fashions. I don't ever see them crying out and saying, we shouldn't invite sexy red to our high schools, right? Or I don't see, our girls shouldn't be twerking. Let's want better for them. I never see them upset about stuff like that. That stuff doesn't make them mad. Right? Like, I need men in our community who are going to be righteously pissed off about the fact that this border is open, like wide open, and we don't know who is coming across, and only God knows what they want to do to the women and children that are here, because they've already shown us what they're capable of doing, and it's not nice, and it's not pretty. And I'm wondering, where was Lil Buddy's bravado and all that energy for that? Right? Because I didn't hear anything of substance. All I heard was, woe is me, the statues are hurting me, and we heard this one, when the government gonna cut my check. Like, that's what I had to sit and listen to. How are you a grown man and are willing to even articulate such foolishness out loud in public, especially in front of other men? Like, I always thought that there was like this man code where, y'all don't want to show weakness in front of each other. And it was a whole room full of men, right? A whole room full of men, and they were just letting it out. Like, the emoting was on 10. Not passion, because there's a difference. This was emoting, right? They were just emoting. And then to make it worse, y'all, there was this woman there who felt like she had to come in and play defense for these men and nurse these grown men back to health with this little speech like, we love you and we see you and we hear you. I was like, no, we don't. I was like, no, we don't. We pity you. I was like, speak for yourself. You do not speak for all of us here. Conservative women pity that. Right? Like, I'm trying to figure out what you're outraged about. Like, we got real issues and you outraged over some stone? Like, can we look at it again and see if maybe we can look and interpret the offense? Because I don't see the offense. I don't know. Am I missing something? Can someone type in the chat and tell me what I'm missing? Am I just not looking at it hard enough? I don't know. Like, this is what you're outraged about? Like, these dudes weren't even embarrassed. They weren't even embarrassed about saying this stuff out loud. Like, we need men in our community who are going to fight against the effeminization of our young boys, not contribute to it. I know it's hard, with your emotional squat the P males, I know it's hard for y'all, but who are you going to protect and provide for when statues and stone carvings cause you to start tweaking and going in diabetic comas? Like you're getting triggered and you start getting the shakes over some stone. I'm like, are you really kidding me? I actually asked that man to show me where on his body where did the monument hurt you? I said, point to me. I need point. Where did it hurt you? Like, when you found out that such a stone carving existed, where did it hurt? I wanted him to point to me, and if I had a baby doll, I'd have been like, show me where on the doll did it hurt you? Like, did that carving prevent him from getting up to go to work? And did it prevent him from providing for his family? No. Not at all. No. And then the other gentleman who was whining and crying, y'all, it was so embarrassing. Oh my gosh. It was so embarrassing. I'm not, yes, I am. I am dismissing their daggone feelings. I'm sorry. I'm dismissing them because no man should be emoting like that. And no man should be that upset over a stone carving that when you actually examine it, it's not even offensive. It's just, had he not been some paid Democrat operative and agitator, he probably would have looked at that and been like, oh, okay, well, I don't know. Maybe that's his kid and he's kind of sad that he got to go and fight to keep the slaves. I don't know. But my question is, does it matter? Like this is a part of history. And to be more precise, this is Democrat history. Let's not forget that. So since so many people just love talking about and dwelling on slavery so much, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Okay? Like, I'm fine. Let's talk about some slavery. We can talk about how during slavery, like the slave revolts, those were rare. Those were really rare. And I'm talking about like on plantations where the slaves outnumbered the white folks. Slave revolts were very rare, right? The revolts on plantations were rare. And then after slavery was abolished, there was so many free men who could have left the South, but they didn't. Like, they actually wanted to stay on their plantation. A lot of them stayed, and they stayed with their former masters on the exact same plantation where they were abused and kept as slaves. And it was nothing keeping them there. Nothing. Homestead Act, only 5,000 freed blacks decided to go work the land. It's the same thing now. The very people who are constantly whining and crying about slavery, even though they've never been a slave, never experienced what it was like to be a slave, they are the same ones who want to give more government power. They want to give more power, more control to the government, and they actually want to voluntarily enter themselves into another government slave relationship by way of government programs, okay? Because all you hear is, well, what y'all gonna give us? What y'all gonna do for us? When we gonna get our check? We heard a lot of that. Y'all, the government, when you think about it on a granular level, the government controls most of the Black Democrats' life. It does. They control their lives, their health care choices. They control their family. They control whether or not you even have a family, because they tell you, no, we're going to put this Planned Parenthood in your neighborhood, and we're going to make sure your kids grow up to think that having a baby and being fruitful and multiply is not a good. No, you got to go kill your baby. That's how they control. They control through genocide, and you fight to maintain that. You want your numbers down, right? Every single aspect of your life, they control. You let them tell you what kind of guns you should own, or if you should be allowed to own a gun at all. Because, government gun control, right? You want them to tell you what kind of insurance to have. You want them to tell you what school you can send your child to. You want them to tell you what your child can and cannot learn. You want them to tell you how and if you can even discipline your own children, and you let them tell your children whether or not they're really a boy or a girl. Like, you want them to tell you when or if you should open your church, and then if you're going, can you stay inside, or we got to be outside? Tell us, Master. Tell us what you want us to do, right? So as much as you want to talk about slavery and how much of a trigger it is for you, I am confused, because what I just described sounds a whole lot like slavery minus the chains. Nah, there's still chains. It's mental chains. It's the shackles in your mind.